This is the Horse Radio Network.
This is episode 1197 of Horse Tip Daily, your almost everyday morsel of helpful hints, useful facts, and practical techniques for horse people. Brought to you today by Kentucky Performance Products. Greetings, horse people! Coach Jen here, and thanks for tuning in to Horse Tip Daily. Today's tip is an excerpt from the Dressage Radio Show. Show host Reese Koeffler-Stanfield is joined by a very special guest to talk about what to be on the lookout when it comes to serious heart problems in people, specifically in women. And we'll get right to our tip after this important message from Kentucky Performance Products.
Her life was falling apart around her, but when she saw his sweet face and heard the low nicker, the pain eased. She stood in the stall for some time, running a brush over his sleek coat, down his powerful muscles and over his tight, cool tendons. He cocked his back leg, waiting patiently. She scratched his favorite spot and was rewarded with a crinkled smile and outstretched neck. The stress flowed from her body, and she knew with him in her life, she would make it through. This love story is brought to you by Endure Extra, providing high-fat calories, direct-fed microbials, and natural vitamin E to support optimal condition and performance. The horse that matters to you matters to Kentucky Performance Products. Call 859-873-2974 or visit kppusa.com to order today.
Well, this evening I am super excited to have my mom, Margie Koeffler, on the program. Welcome, Mom. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Reese. I appreciate that.
Well, we wanted to have you on the show because we had a very important luncheon that we did as a family earlier this month. It was for the American Heart Association, and it was a Go Red for Women luncheon. And you were asked to be a beautiful model for women in Kentucky. It was a big luncheon, about 750 people. And we wanted to share, and you wanted to share your story about what happened. Last year, we were heading to Wellington we had 3 horses with us. And we actually stopped at our layover spot in Micanopy, not too far from Glenn and Jennifer, for the evening. And that evening, we had a heart incident, didn't we?
Yes, that was a good way of putting that, Reese. Thank you.
Well, and so I felt like it was really important because heart health and heart awareness is really a very important topic, and it's become very important in our family. And so I wanted you to kind of share our story, and especially your story about what happened that night, and kind of share it for all the women and even the men that listen to our show about heart awareness. So I'll let you take it away.
My pleasure. Reese and I were heading to Florida with the horses. I must say that, let me just back up a little and say that the summer before I had experienced an arrhythmia, heart arrhythmia, when my aunt passed away. I was under the care of a cardiologist and have been since that time with a mixed rhythm of atrial fibrillation and some problems with conduction to the ventricles called premature ventricular contractions. I had been on a heart medication, so we were somewhat aware that, there was a little bit of a problem. But really, with the medication I was taking, I had no signs and symptoms. I was held into what's called normal sinus rhythm. If you feel your pulse on your wrist, your radial pulse, you can tell that if your heart is in normal sinus rhythm, your pulse is very steady. When somebody is not in normal sinus rhythm, it is anything but steady. Anyway, long story short, my medication was holding me. But about 4 days before we started driving down to Florida, I experienced some chest pain. It was very mild chest pain. It felt like it was from my left side, but it didn't last long, and I had a viral infection that week. Reese and I started driving. We drove about 13 hours down to Micanopy. One of the problems and one of the, I think, adding factors to all of this was that we were not very good about getting out and running around or doing, jumping jacks or just moving in general. And we would stop very quickly, jump out of the van, and then get back in and drive. And that's a really bad thing. It's like you take a long flight and you're always told to wear compression stockings, move your ankles, move about the airplane. We did not do that. That was, I would recommend that for everybody in hindsight. We got down to Micanopy. It was late. I told Reese I wasn't feeling very good, and I told Reese that I didn't think I could help her unload the horses, and the lady that owned the farm was very happy to come down and help her put the horses to bed. I went into the farm apartment. I jumped into my jammies. I got a drink, brushed my teeth, got into bed, and could care less whether or not I had any dinner. And about, I would say, 20 minutes later, I was fast asleep, very asleep. And I woke up immediately with very intense pain in my chest. It felt like I had a very constricted chest on my left side. It felt like an elephant was sitting on my chest and digging a fingernail right at my heart or something like that. So it was a double feeling of a very sharp pain, but also a very restrictive pain. Needless to say, I jumped up and I thought, oh my goodness, maybe I need to change position to see if maybe I could increase oxygen to my lungs. Maybe it was just irritated because of that flu-like problem I had during the week. And I moved in different positions. I sat up. I thought maybe I should walk around the apartment. I walked around. The pain got worse. I then went to the ladies' room thinking maybe that might be a problem. When I figured that was not a problem and I stood up, I broke out in a profuse, cold, frothy sweat. And I know that sounds really terrible, but that's really the best way to explain it. It wasn't the sweat that you get when you play tennis or something on exertion. It was cold. I felt cold. And I decided that at that point in time, so during that time, we're talking about maybe a 15-minute period of time, I decided to call Reese up at the house where she was having dinner with the owners of the farm, and I told her that she needed to call 911. And I explained what was going on. I then called my husband, who is at home, and told him that I was heading to the emergency room. During this time, I was also able to palpate my pulse, and it was extremely irregular. So the emergency squad came, and along the way to the hospital gave me oxygen and some nitroglycerin. I have a very low blood pressure anyway, so as Reese was really funny, she was saying, "Mom, don't tell him what to do."
She was fighting. She was fighting with the ambulance people. Let's just face it. That's the nurse.
Why are we not surprised?
Yeah, I was like, this happened.
For sure.
This happened. I was like, I know this is, you're a nurse.
And the apple does not fall far from the tree.
Thank you,
Glenn.
You're welcome.
Zip it. I was like, zip it. We are in the, and Mom, you forgot to mention that Laura and Chris Herndon are both also medical professionals. So,
and that's a good point, Reese.
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me, because when Reese and Laura and her husband, Chris, who are physical therapists, came running down to my aid, they brought me aspirin.
Yeah,
and that is really critical. And I want everybody to remember from this show that everyone needs to carry aspirin and put it in the bottom of your purse or in the glove compartment if you're a man and don't carry the any sort of satchel or anything, or put it in your briefcase for both men and women. Somewhere where you know you have it nearby. Even if you don't have any history of heart attack or anything like that, just put it at the bottom of your purse.
Yeah,
Long
because
story short, there,
The
yeah, is
911
that
officers will tell you that. They say, "Well, you need to have a baby aspirin." I thought, "Well, I'm traveling. I don't have, I didn't have any."
How
But
about a
Chris,
big fat Butte tablet? You probably had one of those.
You
I
tablet.
did. I don't know if that would have been it, man. But that was really important. And Chris knew that because again, he's a medical professional, and obviously I'm
right.
not. So that was
And
important.
I was very happy that, I mean, I didn't have to ask for that. They just gave it to me, and I had a great time chewing that down, that's for sure. But so I had taken the aspirin, which was very crucial, actually. And off we went in the rescue squad. Like I said, I run a low blood pressure, so I was telling the paramedic not to
Oh
give me any
Lord.
more nitro than the one time. But I'm a former CCU and intensive care nurse, so I knew to do that, actually. So that was a little bit on the helpful side. We got to the emergency room, and and the nitro, I have to say, the nitro and the oxygen were very helpful in stopping my pain. So I got to the emergency room. The ER doc saw me there and said, "Mrs. Koffler, I just have to tell you, you don't fit the profile of somebody with this problem." He said, "But I have to admit you, and the reason why I am going to admit you is because your EKG is terrible. And along with that, let me do tell you that, you responded to oxygen and to nitroglycerin." And so I was admitted, and I ended up I was there for 3 days because I was admitted over the weekend. And I was there for 3 days, and on that Monday, I had a heart cath. And everybody felt like that was something that was very important so that we could have we could confirm a diagnosis one way or another. So the whole episode was very scary. But as it turned out, we really don't know what happened. I did not have a major MI, myocardial infarction, or heart attack. But as the doctor down there said, you did everything right. You took your aspirin. You got here immediately. You didn't wait. You had no changes in your enzymes. They had drawn blood. And one of the confirming tests would be to test the blood for enzymes that occur in the blood when the heart muscle has been damaged. And my enzymes did not have a significant rise. But as he said, you did everything right. You didn't damage your heart muscle. We're not sure you didn't have some sort of little micro heart attack or you had angina. We just can't explain this. But you definitely have a problem with an arrhythmia, and I'm going to discharge you. This is after the heart cath, to the care of your cardiologist, and he will take it from there when you get back home to Lexington. So he did discharge me and allow me to go further down to Florida with Reese. So I wasn't allowed to drive, but I could sing songs
No,
and
I
help
wouldn't
keep
let
her
her at
awake.
this point. My Lord. But Mom, I
Right.
think you mentioned real quickly about you didn't hit the profile, and I thought that was really interesting. Also at this luncheon, where a lot of other ladies that were very fit and active, and I think that's definitely an important comment. And that is, I I don't know what the profile is for a heart attack, but it doesn't matter, and that's important. Is you are very fit,
Well,
lost weight, and so
yes,
doesn't matter if you have this
right.
heart pain or history of heart attack or whatever. Don't ignore it because
Absolutely, Reese. That's the that's the I guess that's the paramount message here, and that is that if you're feeling symptoms of heart attack, and I'm going to go over those right now. For women, it would be chest pain, and that's different than from symptoms with men. Although men also have chest pain, it's usually on the left side, radiating down the left arm, although it can feel like it's stomach. But women have very subtle signs. I mean, they hurt, but they're subtle signs in that you may feel a squeezing or a fullness in your chest. I felt both, actually. You can have pain anywhere in your chest. You can feel like there's a vice tightening around your chest. So that's the pain. The pain can be in your back, radiating to your neck and jaw. Now, I also had jaw pain. You can feel stomach pain, shortness of breath, lightheadedness. You can have that cold sweat. And honestly, that's what did it for me when I thought, oh my goodness, don't be silly, call for help right now, because it is not a sweat, like I said, that you get from doing hard physical exercises, riding hard, or any physical exercise. It's totally different. And then the other thing that can happen too is fatigue. If you can't move around your house and walk up and down the steps, and it's pretty sudden, then that bears watching as well. So when they say the profile of somebody who has a propensity for having a heart attack, it would be a history. It would be obesity. It would be lack of exercise or physical exertion on a regular basis. It would be diabetes, can cause problems. So that would kind of be, multi-system disease, I should say. So, those would be things that would add to the profile of somebody who, plus age, who would maybe be somebody who would be more of a candidate for a diagnosis of MI. But I think what Reese said was extremely important, and that is that don't let anybody talk you out of going. If you feel like there's something wrong, there is something wrong. Don't go to the emergency room and have somebody say, oh, dear, go back home, you're stressed. Go back home, you just need to calm down. Don't let anybody ever say that to you. To say, no, I want my heart checked out. I need to be here because I think there's something very wrong. And I think you need to be adamant in that so that you're not dismissed. Because sometimes women are dismissed in the hospital. When a man comes in and they fit the man profile, they're taken a little bit more seriously. We, on the other hand, a lot of times people are try to talk you out of the problem. And I did speak to a number of women who said exactly that. I had a problem. They told me I was stressed out. I went back home, and the next morning I had to go back to the hospital via the ER. So I think that's a really important thing, Reese, that you brought out, and that is
for sure. No, I think so. I think you really need to, and obviously I knew that was where I knew that there was a problem for sure. But Mom, thank you so much.
Well, it's not the way I normally act.
Yeah, no, you're pretty tough. You're pretty tough. That apple doesn't far fall from the tree either. But Mom, thank you so much for coming on. And if anybody has any questions about it, I certainly can forward you to Mom, and she can give you some more information. But we really felt like
delighted to help.
Yeah, something important that we share for everybody on the Horse Radio Network and the Dressage Radio Show. We felt like this was an important story. So, Mom, thanks for coming on, and we're looking for a much smoother ride to Florida this winter for sure.
Yes, I hope so too, Reese. All right, hon. Thanks.
Well, there you have it. There's lots of information available on this topic at the American Heart Association website. Just type in American Heart Association, or if you're not real cool about surfing about this kind of information, ask your doctor. This podcast was made possible through the generous support of Kentucky Performance Products and listeners like you. This is Coach Jen, and I'll be back again soon with another tip. For now, go ride your horse. The Horse Radio Network and the Horse Radio Network hosts are not responsible for statements of guests or their opinions. Use your own judgment when listening to the tips provided by the experts on Horse Tip Daily.